The spring is like a young man who does not know his mind. The summer is a tyrant of most ungracious kind, while the autumn's like an old friend who loves one all she can, and brings the bearded barley to gladden the hearts of man. All among the barley who would not be blithe when the ripe and bearded barley is smiling on the sun.
Welcome, everyone. Yay! To have you with us tonight. That music intro was a collection of 13 songs by the band Rotary from the Impropriety CDs, volume 1 through 6. I have posted the list in the chat section, so I know several of you are probably saying, oh gosh, what is that tune? Well, let me get right to it. I am Darlene Hamilton of the Historical Tea and Dance Society. We run English country and historical dance classes, workshops, and balls in Pasadena, California. Yay. A place to come if you're ever this way. If you're in Zoom, if you open the chat, which is usually down here, you may ask questions in the chat box. If you're on Facebook, make sure you put your questions there, because Lindsay, the wonderful Lindsay, is in the background scanning everything and gathering those questions for us. So make sure to ask your questions there. Stick around for the after talk. I post the link on the Historical Tea and Dance Society Friends page, or if you signed up on Zoom, you already have that link. It will start just a few minutes after this event ends. And then finally, let me give a shout out and a thank you to the wonderful Karen Axelrod and her Not a Concert every Tuesday live on Facebook, just 2 hours before we start here. She played some tunes from the Impropriety CDs, and we're just always grateful to have her wonderful music to listen to every week. All right, here we go. Let me give a brief bio. Our guest tonight, Brooke Friendly, is an energetic, community-oriented teacher whose specialties include dance choreography and calling with global terminology, something we will definitely be talking about tonight. She's known for her warm yet commanding personality, and if you've been in one of her classes, you know that's true. Clear teaching, creativity, and sense of whimsy, all true. I have been in one of her workshops there. It was great. She teaches throughout North America, England, and Australia. And along with Chris Sackett, she has produced 6 Impropriety dance books. I didn't grab them all, I just grabbed a few. I'm sure many of you have them at home. And, whoops, produced 7 CDs with the band Roguery. Woohoo! So without further ado, welcome Brooke Friendly.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, we're so happy to have you here. This is great. All right, we're going to jump right in because there is much to talk about. There's always much to talk about. And we're going to start with thing 1. Thing number 1. Thing number 1 for Brooke is global positional terminology and gender-free calling. If you know her, what a surprise. But I am really looking forward to hearing the backstory on all of this. So please, Brooke.
Sure. Yeah. Well, sort of the beginnings, I mean, this is where I grew up, right? I started folk dancing in high school, international folk dancing. And then after college, when I was in Ashland, went to another group. And of course, you do Levi Jackson Rag and J.B. Milne and a few English and Scottish dances. And I went to a workshop in Renaissance dance one summer. And one of my friends said, well, if you like this, come to this dance weekend that's happening in 2 weeks. And, you know, of course, I had started listening to Celtic music and other kind of folk music, so I already loved the music. So I went to this weekend, and that was in 1981. And that's where I met Carl Whitman. So Lindsay, if you want to post that photo of him, it's so sweet. Anyway, Carl was my first mentor. There he is. Oh gosh, bless. Anyway, he was fantastic. Not just, you know, the dances he chose, teaching dancing, his whole manner. And he also, at one point in this weekend, he got us in a circle and he said, I may cry, hang on. And he said, you know, it doesn't matter if you are, you know, this or that, you know, shorter to fatter, skinny, black or white, blah, blah, gay or straight, anything. We are all people. We can all come together and dance. And we don't need to assign any kind of roles to each other based on anything, appearance or, you know, who we are. And I just thought to myself, I'm home. This is my home. So, yeah. Anyway, I immediately fell deep in love and joined the local English and Scottish dance group, which was, Chris was one of the co-founders. I think it was founded in 1979. At any rate, and of course, that was founded under Carl's principles. Chris had met Carl a few years earlier in another kind of folk dance class, and I think in Corvallis. At any rate, that's how the group ran. And before you knew it, I was calling and organizing and all of that. Anytime you want to show that photo, Lindsay, of me dancing at it was a couple of years later at this same dance camp. We brought Carl back a couple of times there. Oh, you can't, well, I can't point to, I can see, I can point to myself, but there I am. Back in the day, yep, that would be me. So, you know, aside from the freeing nature of not being told you have to conform to this dance role, or, you know, hearing language of, well, I'm dancing the men's role, but I'm really not a man. And so I have to do all this translation, and just the freedom of being able to dance with whoever I wanted. And the idea that someone else, you know, who, you know, maybe it's a same-sex partners, they can dance together in total freedom, and there's no judgment, and there's, you know, there's just that openness. So Brooke was the dancer in the white knickers. Well, I can't say knickers because that could mean something else, but whatever those are called, and the braids. Let's see. So, you know, global terminology to me immediately, it's clear. You can most of the time use fewer words. You can talk to more people at once. That's where the global terminology came from. It's, you know, it's about here's this pattern. Here, you know, here are 2 people, 3 people, whatever. You can talk to a group of people rather than this person label, that person label, do a thing. So clearer, more people at once. Talking to positions, not people. So on the second diagonal, not you were a first diagonal, but now you're on the second diagonal. It's just like, if you're here now, do this thing. And it's so much more inclusive, so much removing barriers, more welcoming, all of that. And then, I mean, I feel like it makes you a better dancer. You get to learn and dance the whole dance. You get to see the big picture. It's really good for your brain. When I teach my Ollie class, that's part of it. Is like, sometimes, you know what? You've learned the dance, great. Now switch sides and do the dance again. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's good for your brain. And it's okay if you don't do it right the first couple of times. It works out. And I think it's, as a caller and as a choreographer, it's critical that you do dance all of those positions. The other piece in the local group here, in the Heather and Rose, which is a statewide organization of groups, like-minded groups around Oregon. The other piece was coming to the set as an individual, not, gosh, gotta find a partner, oh gosh, I'm old, fat, and ugly, nobody's gonna ask me to dance. No, if you wanna dance, you come, you stand up. So that is a whole nother freeing thing. So yeah, this is how I grew up. I'm seeing a question that I really want to answer there. But I can't really read the whole thing. So
would you like Lindsay to bring that person up?
Yeah, sure, Graham. Yeah, go for it.
I'll bring you right on, Graham. Just
yep.
a moment. Here he comes.
If I've done it right, we'll be able to see everybody.
Yeah. Well, I'll just talk while voices are coming on. At any rate, so local groups in Ashland, Eugene, and Roseburg, Oregon. The Heather and Rose Country Dancers was formed in 1981 from those groups.
It's
hey,
saying
Graham.
Post has stopped video. Lindsay, do you want to take a look at that? I'm trying to start my own video.
Here we go. You should be able to now.
Okay, let me try it.
Hey, Graham.
Hi there.
Oh, there you went away again.
Oh, let me try it one more time. Hello.
Hello.
Brooke, it's so nice to see you.
Likewise.
So I want to slightly reframe my question. You're my
Sure.
follow-up to your first thing, which is that, as you know, you and I, you know, we're really sort of cousins.
Right.
We really sort of learned. I mean, when I started, well, not when I absolutely started, but the time that I started English country dance with any commitment, it was really with gender role neutral calling, and
Yeah,
it was with
with the
Michael
lab group.
Ciccone and Rob Ciccone,
Right.
who you know very, very well, and you danced with in Ashland.
Right.
And now, this wasn't part of the conversation when I started learning to call with them, but one of the things that is really wonderfully interesting to me as a, not just as a caller, but also as a dance historian, is the kind of reach and approach of this way of not just of calling, but of conceptualizing the dance without reference to gender.
Right.
And the way that that spreads not just across, not just within a kind of a gay bi lesbian context, but within a wider community. And I would be really interested to hear you talk about how did that, I mean, again, to look back at my written question, given Carl's commitment in his written language, to, he's really all about a kind of a really gay affirming politics.
Right.
And that related to dance for him. And you know better than I, because I never had the good fortune to meet him, but you, of course, knew him very well. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about that really interesting relationship between his sexuality and its politics and his commitment to dance, and then how you reacted to that, being, not male and not a gay man.
Right. Right. Well, I should, for one thing, he did, his group of people included women. There was a lesbians commune in Roseburg that was also heavily involved. So I think a lot of it was political early on. I mean, it was love of the dance, and it was also the politics of, hey, no wallflowers. Hey, I should be able to dance with my same-sex lover.
Yes.
And so all of that was part of the context. And for me, it was very freeing, because it was not about, it wasn't, I didn't have to think about, oh gosh, all these, undertones of sexuality and all that. It's like, no, hey, I'm a person, you're a person, let's dance. They're people, they can dance. Whoever wants to dance with whoever. And, back when I first started dancing, the language was a lot more binary, the thinking. So, when he got us in the circle, it was gay or straight, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Now it's so much more than that, right? And actually labeling people as this, that, or the other, it just makes it more open to really anybody. Mm-hmm. And without having to go, okay, let's see, how am I going to, what box am I going to put that person in? Mm-hmm. No, that's not part of it. Mm-hmm. So it's all about, we are people and we want to dance together. And that's, yeah. So to me, as not a gay man, that wasn't an issue at all. It was just part of the community. It was part of the freeing up of the love of dance. So
was there something that it did for you particularly at that moment in your life? If I may just say it, as a woman, was it particularly freeing for you at a particular moment in your progress, in your journey?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, I think Bruce talked about this yesterday, about it's a safe place for geeks, right? This dance form. So for me, not being a thin blonde cheerleader type, but you know, just, and not being necessarily comfortable with the whole dating scene. It was a place to come as a person without, you know, and one of the things Carl said at one of these weekends that I loved was, you can have a moment in a dance with somebody, whether it's a two-hand turn or a whatever it is, and you can have this super strong connection in that moment. And that's that moment. It doesn't mean you're going to go jump behind a bush with that person and have sex. It just means you can make these connections with people and it doesn't all revolve around sex. And so for me, that was really freeing. I'm not, you know, not saying that that can't happen, but that's not the point. Does that make sense?
Yes. And
Yeah.
let me just jump in sort of as a dance historian and say that, and also as a kind of a, you know, a second stage acolyte of Carl's, really, that one of the things that's great about that is that, although as a historian, I recognize that English country dance is a kind of a stylized courtship ritual,
Mm-hmm.
that thinking about these dances from a gender role neutral and Carl Whitman perspective helps us liberate it from
Yes.
strictly that, and helps us to justify to ourselves why we keep doing it long past the point where Lindsay accepted, you're still in at courtship age, where everybody else has long since, you know, partnered up, you know, gone past the old maid, old man stage, you know, because, you know, sociologically, most of us are long past the point where we should be dancing together as though it were a courtship ritual, and we want
Graham,
something else from it.
Graham, I would. This is great, and we could spend all day on this, and I'd love to keep talking about it. But I got.
Yeah. I'm showing myself out. It's fine.
Yeah. So thank you. That was really awesome. Mwah.
We can talk about this in the after talk.
Yeah, we can talk more in the after talk.
Maybe coming up we'll focus on just this sometime.
Yeah, we could just have a conversation with a couple people. That'd be super.
This is a fun conversation that we keep having. Yeah.
So go ahead.
Go on, because we were originally talking about the thing one, which is the positional calling, gender calling, and a couple people wanted you to clarify. Is there a difference between global and positional? Because we hear those two terms used. So let's clarify that for people who are wondering. And
I'll go on from there.
Yeah, because we sort of started leading into thing two, just
right. Did we? I don't know. Anyway, so we initially in the Heather and Rose came up with the term global terminology, meaning just we're talking to the whole of the dance. The idea is that you do and learn the whole dance pattern, not just the man's role or the woman's role, but you learn the whole thing, so hence global. Positional is more of a newer term that people that have come in more recently, like in the last, 10 years, 5 years, starting to do gender free, which I'm not a big fan of, but that's another discussion for another time, that term. So positional just basically means, if you're here now, do this, right? So it's essentially two ways of getting at the same idea. One just has they're nuanced, but the basic idea is we're talking about where you are in the dance rather than assigning roles, whether it's a gender-based role or a made-up role. And that's one of the things I did want to mention. Joanna talked whenever it was a couple weeks ago about an initial unhappy experience with trying gender-free calling, and where people were like, rah, 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 if she made a mistake, which my thought is, come on, people, if somebody's trying, cut them some slack. And that she was going to give it another shot. I'm going, yes, that's great. And then the thought that she would there's the positional language and there's the like Larks and Robins, which is more in contra. I can see how that would fit with her teaching style. And I will respectfully disagree that it's a good way to go in general. Initially, and this is in the 1970s, Carl came up with red side, green side. And we did that for a couple of years. And in fact, one of his little manuals was published with that. And then we talked about, that's just some other thing you have to remember that has nothing to do with anything. So that's when left file, right file came up. Left shoulder to the top as you're standing, right shoulder to the top. Or even if you're facing the music, you're on the left of your partner, right. And that works. And that worked well for a while for some people. And it is that's what we use for our books, the kind of language. And like if we're publishing a ball program or anything like that, it's very useful for that. It's not as useful out in the world necessarily because of the whole, how many times are you hearing the words circle left, lefts and right, rights and lefts? So many times those words come in. Plus some people, like the whole left and right thing is not a thing that works for them very well in their bodies. So what I do and what I recommend is that you come up with something that's in that moment. Door side, window side, porch side, fire side. And so, yes, you have to have a flexible mind. To me, it's so easy. It's like, I'm here now. Here's the thing, here's the thing. Sometimes the room looks not so different on either side. Often I've had success with, hey, people that I've never been to this venue before, what should we call that side? Parking lot, because they all know the parking lots out there. Okay, parking lot side, so there's lots of ways to come up with it. And as a dancer, I think it's super easy. It's like, be here now, do this thing. You don't have to think, well, but yesterday when I was dancing in that hall, I was on the door side, and now you're telling me I'm the parking lot side? That's then, this is now. So, and there's lots more to talk about as far as all of that, but not now, maybe.
There is so much to talk about.
Oh my gosh.
We need part two, or,
yeah.
Is it okay if we move on to thing two, or?
Yes, move on to thing two, because I could spend more days here having not gotten to half the things, but there you go.
And I'll tell you, if this conversation just flows along and we don't get to everything, that's okay too. We will have a part two, because there's a lot to talk about here, and we really appreciate it. So thing two, you did start touching on, because thing two is, besides the positional, global, gender-free calling, what other influences informed both your teachings and your dancing?
Right.
And one of the big things I know was Carl. So
right.
Let's have you talk about that for a little bit.
Sure. Well, and I've done lots of other kind of dancing, which it all sort of, relates to each other. So Scottish, Irish, contra, squares, Cayley, Cotswold and Border Morris, Garland, Rapper, Longsword. There's me doing an Irish slip jig back in 1987, I think. I couldn't compete with Bruce Hamilton's amazing Morris dancing, where he's like 12 feet in the air with his, at any rate. So that's me back in the day. But speaking of Bruce, he was my other huge mentor. That both in terms of dancing style, which, I'll just stop there. And also in terms of as a caller. So my two big non-dance influences, one is yoga, which I started doing in 2004, and that has to do with be present with what is in this moment, this event, this dance floor, this music, these people in the room, and notice without judging. That's a huge thing. Notice without judging. Bring your best self. Try your best, but without becoming uptight. Be easeful and relaxed, but without being lazy. Comparisons are not useful. They can lead to pride on the one hand or jealousy on the other. And it's not a competition. You can totally admire someone else's pretzel shape, but you don't have to do the pretzel shape. You know, you can see somebody, two people doing a two-hand turn twice and a half. You don't have to do that either, you know, or maybe you want to, you know, but it's not about a competition. One of the things I love that one of my yoga teachers told me, that bigger is not better. Better is better, right? So more is not better. Being aware of your own needs and abilities in this moment, you know, just because you didn't or did do a thing yesterday, like touch the floor in a forward bend, doesn't mean that in this moment you should try, because who knows what has happened, you know, and tomorrow maybe you will again. You know, the whole idea of taking care of yourself. And then the huge thing of like, let the past moment go. That moment is gone forever. Be in this moment. Where do you need to be now? Recovery skills, relating it to dance. The other one I love is just forgiveness. Forgive your own mistakes. Forgive other people's mistakes. So that's the yoga piece. The other piece that's just huge influence is acting improv. So the fabulous, oh, yeah. Well, we'll get to this book in a moment, but yeah, the fabulous Karen Axelrod has, you know, teaches improv sessions. Sometimes they're just a game at the top of gatherings. Sometimes they're a full week class. Sometimes it's just a session of acting improv, and it's so much fun. And that led me to taking improv classes at home and workshops elsewhere. And so besides being super, super fun, it helps with building a flexible mind. It helps with thinking on my feet. It helps with lots of different lessons. And many of these apply to like my hopes for people on the dance floor, and also how I approach devising workshops and dance programs and how I teach. So yeah, this winter I took this course, which was based on that book that Lindsay showed earlier, the book's called Improv Wisdom. It's a really great book. I highly recommend it. Even if you don't have any interest in theater improv, it's a really great, interesting book. And it's got lots of things that just apply to life, or you can apply to dance. At any rate, there are each of the, so this was a 10-week class that the last class was just before things shut down this winter. And each chapter heading is a maxim. So some of my favorites, one is be average. And that doesn't mean, meh, oh yeah, it was just an average day. It was like, yeah, it was an average day. Get the line reading difference, right? So the idea that close enough is perfect. The one I think inside the box. Notice more that's there. Look more carefully what's there. You don't have to try to be funny or amazing or original. Every single dance doesn't have to be a peak moment. One I love, especially as a caller, is don't make jokes, make sense. Just be average. That's fine. Another one is pay attention. Like listen, attend to one thing at a time. Shift yourself to others instead of yourself. Face the facts. Don't fight reality. What if the hall's too crowded? The hall's too crowded. Deal with it. How can you make it good anyway? Lots of other things there. Stuff around making mistakes. You know, be a confident mistake maker. If you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. And mistakes are fine. It's all about the recovery. It's all about what you do with it. Bruce talked about this last week. And it's something I've learned from him, you know, back in the day also. Take care of each other. Make your partner look good, whether it's your scene partner or your dance partner. Share control. Those kind of ideas. So, so I'm going to talk about my favorite dance right now, one of my very favorite dances, because this all ties into the yoga ideas and the acting improv ideas, some of which I skated over because there's not time. But Hamilton's Roundel, which Kaylee mentioned, I believe is one of hers. Love the tune, gorgeous tune. It can be done mysterious and sort of wistful. It can be done driving and just raucous. What if you have a bad partner? or the music sucks. Are you going to make yourself miserable or other people miserable? Or are you going to go, huh, this might be the last time I ever get to do this dance. I may get to do it a million other times, and some of them may be sublime. And I had a sublime dance earlier, some other time. Or are you going to let average be fine and give of yourself and give to your partner and get the most out of it you can, which just, it might be the satisfaction of knowing that you were a supportive partner and, you know, your smile made other people happy. So like, I guess that's one of the other yoga things is non-attachment. Like, don't be attached to the outcome. Don't be attached to this is, oh, it's my favorite dance and I'm all dressed up in my ball outfit and it's going to be fabulous. Like, oh, no, just go, oh, okay, this is what it is. Anyway. Yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about workshops, but I don't know that there's really much time for it. I do prefer to teach dancing, not dances. And, you know, a lot of the workshops that I do bring in these elements, but I'm going to skip over all that stuff because I really, there's just not time. And I'm going to go right to the end, which is, let's put up Carl's quote if we could, Lindsay. And this, you know, the country dance form can be thought of as an exquisite vessel, in itself beautiful in shape, yet highly abstract. We can choose to fill this vessel with whatever meaning we like. I'm going to cry again. If we like, we can pursue a particular friendship. We can rejoice in a sense of community. We can see in the music and the dance the highest of spiritual values. We can see it as good fun. The dance is all of these and greater than all of them. Okay, I'm done. I'm gonna go cry now. Okay.
That's a wonderful quote. That is wonderful.
It's just, I mean, yeah.
If it's okay with you, I'd like to post it on Facebook with this video so people can.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, it means a lot to me, obviously. So I'm just going to zip through some of the advice to callers things, and some of it maybe we can talk about later. I mean, I love teaching callers workshops.
Okay, but first, let me tell people.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry.
It's advice to callers. No, you're on a great roll. It's fine. But I just want people to know this is thing 3.
Oh, sorry. I'm stealing your questions from you.
It's fine. It's fine. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So one of the things that I think is really important as a caller is to set goals. Like, do you want to be the best caller that you can be to serve your local group? Do you want to tour internationally? Remember, one is not better than the other. They're both equally important and good. They're just different goals. And what your goal is will inform what your next step will be. Thank you, Mary Devlin. She'll know what I'm talking about. You know, what are your strengths? How can you build on them? What are your interests? What's most important to you? Do you cry when you read Carl's quote? Maybe that's most important to you. And you use that. You use yoga and theater improv and global terminology as what are important to you. For me, I leave history and reconstruction to people like Graham and Andrew Shaw and others who focus on that. What are your challenges? So how can you improve? I'm always working on my patience. Or what can you let go of? Maybe, you know, you've been told you should doodle, and you've tried it and you've tried it and you've gotten a little better, but you still aren't very good at it, and it still makes you really uncomfortable, and it still throws you off your game. Don't doodle. Let it go. Yeah, so we're going to skip right past some other stuff. You know, some of the skill building things are obvious. Bruce said, go to dance weeks. Yeah, go to dance weeks. So there have been several questions beforehand, and I see somebody's name here. around if you want to use, one of the things I was already going to say is if you want to use as a teacher, if you want to move toward using global or positional calling and more inclusivity, what do you do?
I think we're going to get Sophia.
Yep, great.
Sophie.
Yes, go to weekends too, says Rebecca. Absolutely.
Sophie, if you'd like to unmute, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, I'm happy to read the question that you submitted for you if you prefer not to read it yourself. Completely up to you.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. I'm still learning how to use Zoom, but I'm delighted to see Brooke and hear all this wonderful sharing. And please just read my question, and I'll sign off.
Perfect.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sophie.
Good to hear
All
your
right.
voice.
Sophie's question was, what do you suggest callers do with a group of dancers who are not familiar with the Heather and the Rose convention of right palm up, left down?
Yeah, so my answer to so many questions is it depends. So am I teaching a workshop called Dancing the Whole Dance, where I take people through the whole, you can have a full evening of fun dances where you don't need translation, et cetera, I'll bring up that. If I'm in certain settings, I will suggest that as an option. One thing that happened to, I was teaching at Fandango in Atlanta, and I was teaching this Dancing the Whole Dance workshop, and I did the right hand up, left hand down. The idea is, you practice when you're standing in line at the bank, your hands just come up that way, everybody's hands come up that way. There's none of this, like, what role am I in, or who, or how, or, we're both dancing the same role, but we're doing a thing. And somebody came up to me at the break saying, now people are correcting me that, because I'm, if I do like that or like that, they're correcting me. So the next time I got to the mic, I said, so this was an invitation. This is not a rule. This is an invitation. If somebody comes to you like that, or that, or that, just take their hands and keep dancing. It's just a moment. So, if everybody has the convention and everybody's doing it, great. But I mean, I've had times when I've put my hands however, and people have gone like that to me. It's like, that is not okay. You can both bring up your hands and you can go, oh, they're doing like that, and you can switch. That's fine. You can not switch as fast as the other person. But otherwise, just take their hands and turn or whatever. So, yeah, there's always going to be some hand fussing, and it depends on the situation.
We have another question we're going to bring up. Cassianne, I think the name is.
Cassianne, excellent. You are welcome to unmute and turn on your video if you'd like.
Hey!
Hi, Brooke.
Hi, Cass.
Yeah, you know me. I changed my name a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, but question was, for someone who is no longer comfortable using gender terminology and really wants to switch to using global terminology, just thoughts on, I'm not sure if it's ways you can start that process out, and then explaining to groups when you get there that, hey, just, I don't use gendered terminology anymore, that sort of thing. Like, if dance groups aren't sure about the whole idea of not using gendered terminology.
Yeah. So this is one of the things I skipped over, really, because you can do a whole evening without using any terminology at all, of gender terminology, and you don't have to tell anybody about it, and it can be just completely just not there. And in fact, Katie German, when I would go on CDSS exec meetings, often she would say to people, so did you ever notice people, her using gender terms? And like, no, I guess I didn't. Did you have fun tonight? Yeah, it was great. It was really fun. Did you ever hear man or woman or lady or gent? Oh, I guess I didn't. So, I mean, that's my first goal. If I'm going somewhere where I don't know, or where I know that they're pretty traditional, or they've even told me, I won't say anything. And I'll just pick, I won't do Good Man of Balingi, Dan. I'll do a different dance. But I did, this was back in a series of workshops with Bruce Hamilton back in the 90s, early 90s. And several of us put together a program. This was part of the culmination of this 1.5 year long teacher training program. And I had, without paying attention, chosen Siege of Limerick as one of my dances. And our stated goal for the evening was, we will not use any gender terms and nobody would notice. And then all of a sudden I sort of got there that night and went, what? Siege of Limerick? It has, number 1 on the left file does a track, number 1 on the right file does a track. So I went, oh, okay. And what I did was, okay, the dance starts with a solo in turn for the ones. Watch here. And I came down to the floor and I said, this person does this thing. Now my partner does the thing, and I just demonstrated it and we moved on and it was fine. So demos are your friends, not just because they are, but they also can be your friends to avoid having to use gender terminology when you pick a dance and you go, oh, huh. And then again, it depends. What's your relationship with the group? How stuck are they in the traditional thing? Are there cranky people? Yeah, it's a big workshop topic, callers workshop topic that I love to do. But does that help? Does that answer a little bit of the question?
That really does.
Good. Cool.
I've been trying different types of like alternative person terminology, and I'm really finding it kind of frustrating. So I was like, okay, global sounds like a good idea, but it's like the Siege of Limerick scenario is exactly the kind of thing I'm afraid of running into.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the more, the less overt you can be in many of the settings. Like sometimes you want to be super overt, like the workshop that I do called Dancing the Whole Dance. It's all about, hey, we're going to play with this idea. And it's worked really well in lots of places where people are, I've done it in England, I've done it in Australia, I've done it, around North America. And that's an overt exploration. And then the other side of that is, no, we're just going to have a great evening of dances, and nobody's going to notice that they're not hearing these terms. And then it's the question of getting those tricks. Yeah, so gosh.
Great topic for the after chat as well.
Yeah,
Definitely want to move us on. Thank you for your question. It is a great question, and I've made a note to bring it up in the after chat as well, because we'll never get through these things.
Oh yeah, you should see the pages of notes of bullet points of things I might want to talk about that I'm skipping over.
So, thing number 4. Let's just touch briefly. Because I know thing number 5 is a bigger thing.
Yeah.
Not bigger than in importance, but bigger.
No, right.
Thing number 4 is all the work you do in programming and the organizing work as a camp program director and with CDSS. And this all touches my heart because, we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes and it's important. And thing number 4.
Yeah. So, thing number 4, programming and organizing. So I've been program director for the Bay Area Country Dance and Song Society, or Dance Society, sorry, BACDS. Back at Mendocino, I was program director for 2 years, and then just recently at Heydays. And very sadly, the postcard for which we developed for this year is, it's not happening. With Jim Oakton's fabulous program, but there's Katie, there's Chris. I do the organizing work because it's another way that I can share my love of this dance and form and make it go forward, help it go forward, and all of that. So I feel like it's, I mean, it's a big commitment, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. And it's just another layer of all of this. Now, and I'm also on the, well, I'm no longer on the board of CDSS. I was on the board from 2001 to 7, and then I just now finished another term as secretary, 6 years. And because I geek out around organizing and about ideas for how to make this community as strong as possible, it's really fun work for me. And I was raised with the idea that you give back to your community. So that's really important to me. I'm so proud of the work that CDSS is doing around this whole COVID situation. Staff super quick to shift focus and ways of operating. I mean, the executive director is amazing. The staff is talented and agile and committed, and that's a great board of directors. So yeah, there was a screenshot of the CDSS website. I don't know if you want to bring that up, Lindsay, but basically, like, how can you be involved? If you have a resource, share it with CDSS so they can share it with the broader community. If you have a question, ask it. Look, here there is all this information that you can find out about. You can post online events that you've done. You can submit a cancellation for an event. Send love to freelancers, resources for freelancers, so many resources for organizers, so many things that are super helpful right now. And things that, they're working on some other projects. Now that most camps aren't happening, it's like, okay, well, that's a resource issue, but it's also, now we have time to do other things, that we're going to focus on things that are needed now. So if you're not already a member of CDSS, please join. If you are a member, thank you. Either way, you can make an additional, or you can make it a donation. And, you can do the big stuff like CDSS board or committees or, week programming for a week. And it's important to give back to your local community, whether it's being on a committee for an event or sitting at the door, sweeping up afterwards, because it takes all of us, and they're all, and again, bigger isn't better. They're all equally important. So I invite everybody to be involved at some level. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we can shout for Chris now. And
well, first, what we're going to do is we're going to play a little intro, a little piece of music. And I just want to let you know that there were really great questions that you've asked. Come to the after talk, because we're going to try to get all of those questions up. But thing number 5, we're going to lead in with a piece of music, and the tune "A New Leaf," again by Roguery.
Yeah. The tune is Mr. Millstone's Defenestration, in honor of David Millstone when he retired as CDSS board president, tuned by Dave Weisler. The dance is "A New Leaf," which is the title track for our most recent CD. Yay.
Hello.
Hi. Well, thing number 5, of course, is the choreography and impropriety. Welcome.
Yay.
Chris.
Yeah. So, yeah, we've got a bunch of books. We've written a bunch of dances together. I think we wanted to start with talking about how we came to write Impropriety, and then what our process is for writing dances. And I mean, for Impropriety, it was one of our very first dances, and it came with the idea of, let's do a dance where the ones end on the other side. Thing 5 is Chris. Thing number 1 and thing number 2, Dr. Seuss. Chris can be a thing too. Sorry. And so, you know, that we played around with it, and gosh, we couldn't get the ones to end on the other side. We had to work really hard. I had a conversation with Bruce Hamilton when the dance was done, and I said, well, we haven't come up with a title. And he said, well, Impropriety. Like, yes, thank you, Bruce. Perfect. I don't know if you want to add to that, but it's, I guess the other thing was we, you know, testing it with the group, and I don't even know what the thing was, but there was a thing that as we were dancing it, we sort of looked at each other and went, oh, no, we're going to leave this little tiny piece out. It was a thing. I don't know what it was. But pretty much after those dances, or after that dance, the tune, in our process, the tune comes first. So, you know, influences on how we choreograph, again, the idea of dancing the whole dance and Carl Whitman's influence. We look at the dance as a whole. Sometimes it leads to a purposeful trick like Impropriety. Sometimes it's unintentional, like when folks that are more used to like a gender role focus are doing a corner thing with someone on their own side, but it really is a corner partner thing, but you're doing it with your own side. And so it's just like, well, that's weird. Well, no, it's just, we didn't think about, you should be with the opposite side. We're just all dancing. We also both do Scottish dance. So we've borrowed, figures like set and link and corners, pass and turn from Scottish, and either used them or adapted them. So yeah, process. Our process depends to some degree on whether it's a commission or not. If it's just for ourselves, we find a tune we like, or someone sends us a tune. We work a lot with Shira Kamen and Dave Bartley. We've done a lot with Dave Weisler as well. And then other people send us tunes, or sometimes it's people just will say, hey, here's this tune. Or Jim Oakton will say, here's this awesome traditional tune. I think you should write a dance to it. And we'll listen to it and go, yeah, that's a really cool tune. So then we just put the music on and see what happens. Move around, but also spend some time analyzing it. It's like, okay, this part feels like continuous flow. This part feels like setting or a poise point or a change of direction. This is a 2-bar chunk. This is a 4-bar chunk. This is a 6-bar chunk, whatever. Sometimes we have an idea that we want to try out. Like, let's have a left-hand turn lead. Everything's always right. Let's go left. Let's have the 2s be more active. We haven't used it in a while though. A figure bank where, we'll write a dance and there'll be something in there that was cool but didn't work. So it just goes in the figure depository, if you will. And sometimes we'll go through and pull it out or remember it. Sometimes it's just like, oh, we did this dance at this event and there was this cool bit in it. Can we build on that to do something?
Thievery is okay.
Thievery is okay.
I think we're going to interject a question here.
Sure.
Okay. Lindsay, do we have that person that we were going to bring up, or is it mine?
Well, I was reaching out to them right as you brought it up. So, we can just spring it on them. They've been really great before.
Yeah.
Kara and Todd.
Kara and Todd have the best questions.
They do.
I really
Okay,
appreciate it because we love the questions. It really makes it more interactive. So thank you.
My pleasure. Good luck.
Which one is it going to be? Hi, Kara, I'm Todd.
Hello.
Can you hear me? I don't know
Yep.
if I'm on audio. Okay, great, wonderful. Well, you pretty much answered it anyway. but I was asking about, I'll read it as I wrote it to save time. Your English country dances are famous for their flow, but even in many of your dances where one figure flows right into the next, you have a few carefully placed moments that have a strong stop and reversal of direction, for example, in A New Leaf. When you listen to a tune you're planning to use for choreography, do you hear right away where the dancers will flow and where they will divert or reverse, or does that come later?
No, we don't hear it immediately necessarily. Not all the time.
Yeah, sometimes it is like it feels like, yes, this is a place where it wants to stop and go as opposed to continuous flow, but no, not always. It depends.
Okay, thank you.
We get to have those times when we say, no, that doesn't work, and we need to jettison that idea, because it when say, but the music really does inform. Sometimes it demands a change of direction.
If you don't mind my asking on that, when you conclude something doesn't work, have you tried it out with a group of dancers and then you conclude, or is it just working it with the two of you?
Well, that's more of the process. And again, we usually play around in our living room, the two of us. Sometimes, there might be a little scribbling on paper, but usually it's just moving, and sometimes we can say, oh yeah, that's an awkward transition. And then sometimes we'll take a completed dance that we think works and we'll put it before people and they'll go, yay, or we'll notice, well, that looked a little confusing, or, or a lot confusing, or, that was great except for this this position. And sometimes it's, we'll get to a certain place in the dance, or we'll have an idea and we want to test that chunk to see, hey, does this work? So sometimes we feel like, sometimes we come up with it, what we feel is done before we put it in front of people, or at least done-ish. And other times it's chunked.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I can't believe we're at the end of our hour, and there's still so much more to talk about.
Oh my gosh.
And I think I would be remiss if I didn't touch on the other question that Karen Todd had asked about your long-term relationship with the band Roguery. I mean, and that amazing music. And maybe we should spend just a moment or two talking about that before we go to the close and then move into the after talk.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, we've known all of the musicians for a long, long time. Two of them, Dave, like I said, Dave and Shira, are prolific composers, and so they've given us tunes. But I mean, Roguery has its own sound for sure. Some of the time it's, like often in our recording sessions, we'll have tunes that we found, or tunes that Shira or Dave have written, or Jim has suggested, or other people have given us. And we do these one-off recordings where they'll just play 3 times through the tune. And that will often, the way they play it and relate to that tune will inspire what we think about, as opposed to like if we played it somebody else played it, or just like on the piano. So there is a fair amount of back and forth there. And we have lots of conversations with them when we're in pre-production. Both, we send them, here's what we think the feeling of the dance is and the tune. And sometimes we'll have like a one word or a short phrase that describes the mood. And then they come and they play together, and they'll get inspired by a certain idea, and they'll say, hey, what about this? And we'll go, whoa, that's really cool. Or usually not, mostly like, oh, okay, yeah. But occasionally it's like, yeah, it's not really where we want to go. I mean, sometimes we've been very clear in advance where we want to go. We have discussions around tempo. like, we want it to be this tempo. Shira or Jim may say, you know, really this style should be at this other tempo. And so we come up with a compromise that feels like the best way for both the tune and the dance. I don't know.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's great. You know, it's decided. There's too much to talk about, and so we're gonna have to have you back for a part 2. So at this point, I really do need. We run over a little bit, and I need to do a closing thing. But we do have the after talk. You're going to have to be patient until we do the closing credit sort of thing, and just for now, for this portion, thank you so much, Brooke. Thank you, Chris, for coming in. Really appreciate it. We'll see Brooke and Chris, maybe, hopefully, in the after talk, which will be starting just moments after this ends. But let me give you a moment to say goodbye for this section, and then let me do my closing thing.
Right. Well, goodbye. But thank you so much to Darlene and to Lindsay, who, number one, for inviting me, and number two, for just doing this thing at all. You know, just all of the people. You've had some really great guests, and what a service it is for all of us stuck at home. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And blessings.
Well, thank you. It's been a real blessing and thrill for us. So I didn't know what I was starting, but I'm sure glad I started it.
Yeah.
All right. So let me see if I can get through all the closing things that I need to get through. I always forget to remind people that next week, who we have coming up is Orly Krasner from New York Country Dance. And we're looking forward to that. And then we have our once a month special Saturday morning historical dance 5 Things talk. And that's going to be Susan DeGardiola. And if you don't know who she is, do yourself a favor and visit her website at kickery.com. And you will be amazed at how much wonderful information is there. Anyone who's into historical dance uses it. So that is Saturday morning at 10 Pacific time, and Orly Krasner next Tuesday night, same time. And let's see, we have a donation screen that will be going up, and we have music that's going to be playing us out, and I will again post that. So at this point in time, we're going to have a little moment where we show the donation screen, because there are a lot of people that could use the donations because they were working full-time on gigs. And then it stopped. So thank you. And to the good work of CDSS, like you said, they're one of the people that we support. So thank you, and we'll see everybody in a few minutes. Check your chat for the credits for the music. Thank you to Roguery for letting us use their music. Thank you for the wonderful dances and workshops and heydays and all that stuff. Can't wait for next year.
Yeah.
So we'll see you all in a few minutes.
Great.
Thank you.